Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's video let's discuss the departure change checklist. This is part of the normal checklists in the Airbus A320 and Airbus A330, 340 family, and it is a checklist that flight simmers regularly neglect. So here's the situation when we would use that checklist at all. The trigger is when you get a revised clearance and when the revised departure briefing has been completed. So let's have a look at a practical example. We're standing here in Cologne, runway 14 left. We're prepared for the Nurvenich 1 Quebec departure, and while we're already standing on the runway, air traffic control advises us that they've got to change to our clearance. Do note that the checklist would be applicable at any point from when your departure briefing has already been completed onwards when you get a reclearance. So basically, whenever you've checked that everything is correctly set up, thereafter you get a reclearance from air traffic control, that is when you are going to do the departure change checklist. So instead of a takeoff from runway 14 left, they now want us to take off from runway 24. How are we going to go ahead with this? Well, the first thing is we stop the airplane somewhere and we set the park and brake. Now obviously that doesn't have to be on the runway where we are right now, but if you are on the runway and that's an active runway, then chances are you may want to vacate it and then do the checklist at some spot convenient for air traffic control. The same obviously goes for the entire setup. Now, let's just assume ATC tells us, well, there is nobody on the approach, you can take any time you want while standing on the runway over here. So now we can go ahead and prepare our airplane for the departure. Now, obviously there's several things we need to do, and we are going to go through all of them right now. So we're going to start actually changing our departure. So we'll start, instead of 14 left, we're going to go for runway 24, and we're going to fly the Nurvenich 1 Delta SID. Alright, that one's inserted. Be aware the airplane is going to put discontinuity afterwards, so we are going to take that one out and continue with our planned route. Now obviously everything has changed now with the different SIDs, so let's have a look at the chart and have a look at what we need to do next. So Nurvenich 1 Delta SID, let's quickly go ahead and find it. Here it is. And you can see the SID is fairly easy, goes straight at 2.6 kbo and then a right hand turn inbound to Nurvenich. So we, after checking that our route is correct in here, we can go ahead and go to the RadNav page and insert our new route, our new track. So 085 is radial here, could obviously take the opposite course, 265, that would make a little bit more sense. So that's in as well now. And next up then is our takeoff performance. When you change the runway in the Airbus FMS, it is going to do what you can see over here. It's basically going to blank all the fields about the flex temperature and the takeoff speeds, and it's going to show you confirmed takeoff data. Now, in this case, since we changed the runway, let's go ahead and recalculate our SID, or rather our takeoff performance for the new runway. Okay, so Cologne 24, and the rest is basically unchanged. Hit calculate. And here we go. So now it's all of a sudden a config 3 takeoff with a downtrim of 0.1. So 3/0.1 down. And then if we compare the rest of the data, we got flex temperature is different and the entire takeoff speeds are different as well. So let's go ahead and enter the new data. It's going to be 140, 140, and 141. And the flex temperature is going to be 65 degrees. Now, the next possible issue the Airbus has already reminded us about, and that is flight control, flap MCDU disagree. That's obviously because we did change our flap settings, so we gotta remember that we gotta change our flap configuration here as well into config 3 takeoff now, and thereafter redo the takeoff config test. Alright, that's looking good. That stuff is entered. Obviously, the noise abatement procedure might be different as well, so we might, for example, have an acceleration at 1,500 feet now, or whatever is the new noise abatement procedure. We just got to make sure that we actually check this. When we go onto the flight plan page, obviously make sure that we're able to meet any departure altitude constraints, and then check the SID the normal way. So if we take a look into the charts now, you can see we've already had the conventional chart ready. Now let's go ahead and go for the RNAV side of things. Down here it is, Nurvenich 1 Delta RNAV departure. So again, the normal stuff that you would do after the normal stuff that you would do after preparing the FMS for the first time as well. So straight ahead, Delta Kilo 020, which is what we got, and then towards November Victor Oscar, climbing to an altitude of 5,000 feet, and we do have 5,000 feet in the FCU. Alright, now with all of that done, we would go ahead and redo our departure briefing. So if we go for the normal Airbus briefing, then the pilot monitoring is going to lead the way, and we will do that over here as well. So takeoff runway is now 24, Nervenich 1 Delta departure, climbing 5,000, MSA 3,800, extra fuel and time, and this is an important thing for you guys to check, because as you can see, the extra fuel might reduce rather drastically over here with a change of the SID, which might lead to a longer routing as well. Okay, so hotspots for the taxi, we're taxiing across an active runway, stop margin for rejected takeoff isn't calculated by Phoenix, stop engine outset, something we completely neglected while doing our setup right now, but that is going to be straight ahead to 3.5 miles and then a left turn in Mount Vipper, climbing 4,000 feet. So immediate return is possible, 14 left is the active landing runway, nothing special, nothing non-standard. Threats for the departure? Well, one threat is that we just changed out everything over here, so in order to mitigate against that, we are going to read the departure change checklist. Any questions on the briefing? No. Okay, then let's go for it. Departure change checklist. Now, runway and SID. Cologne runway 24, shift 0 meters, Nervenich 1 Delta departure. Flap setting, conf 3, takeoff speeds and thrust, 140, 140, 141, flag 65, FCU alt, 5,000 feet. Departure change checklist complete. Now let's quickly have a look into what I just did there on the departure change checklist. The checklist starts with the point runway and SID. On that, the pilot flying checks the runway, the takeoff shift and the SID on the FMS. So we look down here, takeoff runway 24, shift 0 meters in this case, Nervenich 1 Delta departure. The next point then is flap setting. The pilot flying and pilot monitoring check and compare the flap settings on the engine warning display and the FMS performance page. So you got down here, config 3, config 3. Takeoff speeds and thrust. The pilot flying reads aloud V1, VR, V2 and thrust setting on the FMS performance page, while the PM checks V1 and V2 on the primary flight display. So V1 140, VR 140, V2 141, flex 65. Now, the last point then is FCU altitude, where the pilot flying checks the altitude on the glare shield, so in our case, 5,000 feet. And that is the departure change checklist. Now, from here on, when that is completed, we would tell ATC that we are ready for taxi now, and taxi the plane to the new runway in order to depart. Now, that's it, gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed this video and that you learned something on it. If you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to leave a comment to let me know what you think about it, and leave a like in YouTube as well, as it does really help out the channel. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and if you really like what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.